Good morning, everyone. We're so glad to have you back with us on another episode of Writer's Chat. My name is Johnny Alexander. I get hosting duties today, plus I'm here with Melissa Stroh and Brandy Bro, and Victoria Durstock is our guest, and we're going to be talking about how music inspires writers, which I've been really excited about. Very excited to have Vicki with us today. She's a multi-passionate creative and entrepreneur, fueled mostly by coffee, and I know she also makes coffee, has coffee, a coffee company. She pursues her dreams with verve and intensity. The wife and mom of three, she divides and conquers the never-ending to-do list while working to maintain her sanity and pleasant demeanor. I like that too, because you are always pleasant and smiling. She is currently on a fascinating writing journey, which has plunged her deep into social media landscape. And she enjoys sharing her tips and tricks for growth and engagement with others through coaching and teaching online courses. We'll put her social media links, her website links up in the chat. Also, she had two releases last fall with Skyhorse Publishing, Christmas Crafts and Advent Devotions for Kids. And the second one was Biblical Hospitality. She is also the author of Heart and Home, Design Basics for Your Soul and Your Living Space, which is an absolutely beautiful book, and Heart and Home for Christmas, Celebrating Joy in Our Living Space, which is also an absolutely beautiful book. These two books combine short devotionals and home design tips, and they have these full color pictures, which are absolutely gorgeous, and were released by Abingdon. So Vicki, welcome. And we didn't even say anything about your musical gifts and talents, which makes you the perfect person to have here. So I'll let you talk about that, because I know you teach piano and you're very, very skilled and musically gifted, and that's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Johnny. Thank y'all for having me. It's always a joy to come back to Writer's Chat and come hang out with y'all. I wish I could do it every week at this stage of my life. I really do. I miss it, because for so long it was just kind of a constant, Tuesday morning, I got to see all my friends and hang out. And then I started getting kind of busy and putting books out, and that never-ending to-do list was really never-ending. And so it is fun to come back. So thank you for having me. I am a trained musician. That's actually what my degrees are in. I have a bachelor's degree in music with a piano proficiency. I have a master's degree in music education. And I taught piano lessons and voice lessons in my home as a home studio for years and years while I was homeschooling the children. And it's just an interesting path that we come along. Sometimes I call writing my midlife crisis. I always knew I wanted to do it one day when the kids were grown and out of the house. And I really did think the process was going to be much different for writing, that it would just be, you wrote a good book and a publisher looked at that good book and said, hey, that's a good book, and they published it. I really kind of honestly thought that was the process, and I have since learned that is not the way this whole thing goes. But I have learned, what I needed to learn along the way. I'm still learning. There's new challenges all the time. But I'm enjoying it. And I still, of course, have a passion for music. I still love music, but I'm not in the studio all the time anymore. I'm not teaching full time, because I have now, started enough businesses that I keep myself busy in other directions. So still just, I have books on music and things I want to teach about that one day that I would love to see out in the marketplace at some point in the future. But for now, I'm walking where the doors are open.
That's the best thing to do. I love saying yes to God when he drops something in my lap. And always try to do that. And then you never know exactly where that's going to lead. So that's really great. Well, thanks for sharing all that. And we are excited to have you today to talk about, kind of merging music and writing together. I think this is a great topic.
Well, it's always interesting to me because we talk a lot about writing with the five senses, and we talk about that, like, especially when we're actually physically, writing the words on the page and trying to figure out ways to describe things. But I have also found that scents trigger my senses, when I'm smelling a certain candle or my favorite essential oil that's maybe called joy because I need it for the day or whatever it might be, that triggers this activity of writing just the same as music does. And I think it's so interesting to find that I have to have different playlists for each kind of writing or editing that I'm trying to do, because my brain will take off in a million directions if I just try to do one in particular.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And there is some really interesting studies, about music improving focus and concentration and productivity. I don't know if you've ever noticed that yourselves when you're working on a project, that if you kind of get the music going and you have that right flow that matches what you're working on, you actually kind of get in it faster. And, sometimes the writing process takes a little time to get into and then really develop the flow. I think the music actually helps us concentrate a little more quickly, helps us to improve our focus, because sometimes it's easy to, look out the window or be distracted by the phone or the Facebook or the whatever, the other things on the to-do list, especially if the writing starts off a little slow, you want it to go faster. The things on the to-do list sometimes are easier to check off because they're quicker than the actual digging in and doing the writing. So I think that, understanding that there is a big association between music and good work habits in general, that's not even just for writers, it's for everyone. And then the emotions that can come from that, if you're dragging or don't have energy, there are uplifting emotional pieces of music that can get us going and get us excited and get us writing again.
I would like to know,
people. You want me to keep talking?
yeah, that's fine. Because I know I know you've got a lot to cover, and we want to give you plenty of time to do that. But I was going to say, because we hear this sometimes, like, do we, people who write with music or people who write in silence? So it's like, okay, in the chat, tell us which one you prefer. Like, does it have to be completely silent for you to write, or do you write to a playlist? And I will ask these guys too. So Melissa, what about you?
I have to have silence when I'm writing, but I like to listen to music beforehand because it kind of gets the creative inspiration going. So I do actually have sometimes a playlist or different styles of music that I like to listen to when I need to get in gear. But once the writing starts, then it becomes a distractive to me because I'm kind of ADD. So it's easy for me to be, if there's music, especially if there's singing or lyrics to it, then all of a sudden I'm wanting to sing with the music rather than focus.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's an important distinction is, most of the time it needs to be instrumental because I start singing along too, like, or if it's a song I know really well, even if it is still instrumental, I'll be typing and then I'm like, nope, I'm actually singing something. So this isn't working. So it either has to be instrumental or it has to be a foreign language. And
oh my God,
I can't sing along.
I never thought of a foreign language. We have actually, Isabel, I saw her pop in. So she's here all the way from France, which is always so cool when she joins us. So she's, bilingual, maybe multilingual, I'm not sure. I find I like, and I usually, for me, it's quiet, but when I do have music on, I like music soundtracks, and I'll just play those because some of them are familiar and some aren't, but there are no lyrics usually. So that's kind of what I do. Randy, what about you? Oh, go ahead, Vicki.
That's okay. I was just going to say one real quick thing. I found when I was writing fiction that my tracks were very different. They were very much like Hans Zimmer and John Williams and all of the movie type themes that don't necessarily have words. They're instrumental, but man, they can get you into the action really quickly. And so fiction writing is also very different from when I'm trying to write a devotional.
Oh, that's interesting too. Yeah. Okay, Brandy.
Yeah, I listen to a variety of music. I especially like upbeat, jazzy guitar if I'm editing because it gets me pumped. And I tend to listen to a lot of Dead Can Dance, which is a lot of weird, upbeat, almost tribal music, a kind of variety of things with that. But I find if I get to know a song, then even if it's foreign language or it's nonsense words, which there is a lot of in one of the groups I listen to, which is called the Cocteau Twins. They just take a variety of sounds because the sounds, they put it together, it makes neat music. But if I get to know the song too much, then I'm still singing the foreign words or I'm vocalizing the tune anyway. So I'll change up my play tracks. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. All right, Vicki, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. So I was going to play for y'all some of my fiction playlists because honestly, when it comes on, any of the pieces that come on from that now, because over a 6-week period, I wrote my novel, and every day I played the same playlist every time I was working on it. And so hours and hours of listening. So even when these songs come on now, I'm still like, I need to go write some fiction. So what I've done is kind of trained my brain in order to operate in a certain way, which I think is really important for us as well, because we just can't sit and write for hours on end. You know, we're people who are multifaceted, so we have to go do other things. And coming back to get into the process again, if we can speed that up any, it is nice to have something that triggers us to move in a particular direction. So while I'm not saying, you know, we are like mice that can be triggered to do certain things, I mean, in some ways, I guess
we are.
Where's my cheese? You know, like
Exactly. Oh, goodness.
So here's a couple of songs from it's called Epic Instrumental. This is my playlist on Spotify that I always listened to when I was writing my novel. And then this one.
I know that one.
There you go. Or this one. So they all kind of have something in common, which is this dissonance and this tension that's built in them, right? And so, you know, music can be either dissonant or consonant. And consonant is the sweet and pretty and the lyrical, the things that we just are like, oh, that makes me happy. Most of your lullabies are not going to be dissonant. You know, they're going to be pretty. Yeah. And so there's dissonance in music because it creates that tension. And what I needed when I was writing some of those, you know, interesting and intriguing themes and things to keep the ball rolling was that tension. It kind of drives you forward because you want to get away from it as soon as possible. You know, you're trying to move forward into where it feels consonant again. And I just find it so fascinating that how it affects the writing process. If I listen to this though, when I'm trying to write a devotional, it's not quite the same. Or when I'm trying to write about hospitality, you know, like
That's so cool though. And actually tension was a word that popped up in the chat. A couple different people said like tension felt and like sounds like someone's about to be killed, or great foreshadowing music, you know. So it's like, wow, yeah. I mean, it definitely resonates with an emotion, with feeling there.
It does. And that emotion's what helps get the brain kind of activated into thinking about, you know, how am I feeling? Well, how is my character feeling? What are the things that I'm trying to describe? And when I'm feeling that tension, I can describe that too. And, but it's interesting, I can't edit to this either, or else I'm tense while I'm editing. And, you know, that red pen is, you know, tension enough, you know, I don't need more of it. I have to have something very soothing and calming, you know, what I'm trying to review.
Oh, yeah. True. That's interesting.
So then I thought, well, I would play for you some others. You know, if you've ever gone and had like a massage done or gone and had a pedicure in a nice relaxing place, you know, there are certain things they play. They don't play this, you know, they don't play the tension filled music. They play more of what we call the ambient sounds. So I was going to play some of those real quick. And it disappeared on me. I had it all queued.
Of course.
Of course. Let's see. All right, well, we'll come back to ambient sounds because classical is generally, if you've ever heard of the Mozart effect, classical is generally one of the things I used to play soundtracks of classical pieces for my kids when they were babies, because I was convinced it would help their brains develop better.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing, at least I hope. And so the classical songs are ones that I've, played while I was, growing up, and things that I had to play in school. Of course, there are a few pieces I don't want to listen to, because I remember the struggle of playing them for my school program and things like that. So certain things have associations, I need to be careful with, but mostly classical pieces in general, Bach, Mozart, I love Debussy. There are just some beautiful classical pieces out there. And then there's some modern pieces. Ludovico Einaudi, and I probably said his name wrong, so y'all forgive me, but
I love his stuff. His stuff is great.
Stuff is amazing. I don't want to play too many clips because I don't want YouTube to ban us for having music on here.
I almost felt like my heart rate was just like, shoo.
Right. I love his stuff. Every time there's something new that comes out, I'm just like one of those rabid fans, because it's just, he writes very beautiful, calming music that is just, anytime especially this is one of my favorite songs. Anytime I hear it, I just kind of go, and then I can sit and I can do some of the things, or write emails, or do all the things on my task list, that needs to be done, but it's in a more calm and peaceful frame of mind than when I'm trying to like build tension in a story. So he is one of my favorites, along with, of course, the classical greats that have been around for a long time. It's interesting that the Mozart effect was actually a scientific study where they were measuring the changes for people to do spatial reasoning tasks after they listened to a Mozart sonata specifically. And they had 3 different classifications of people: the piano sonata people, the relaxation music people, and then people who were listening to nothing at all. And the tests always came back very conclusively that you can enhance, at least temporarily, your cognitive abilities based on what kind of music you listen to. And the Mozart sonata was the most effective out of those 3 groups. And so I think it's just really interesting that even when we're not talking about writing per se, it's actually very beneficial because it's engaging different parts of your brain. And I've read also that it engages left and right brain at the same time. So you're actually like getting the full immersion of your entire brain instead of just a portion of it, which usually we generally work in one hemisphere or the other.
Well, that's fascinating. Wow.
It's funny because I know a lot of those pieces. So as you're playing the clips, I'm sitting here humming in my head the next notes.
Yes. And I noticed you had another one, Brandy, that you put in the chat. I saw it scroll by, and that's one on one of my playlists as well. So
2002, was that it?
Let me scroll back
There's
up.
2 Steps from Hell.
Yes.
2002.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's really interesting to think about the fact that we can actually help ourselves in the writing process, right? So like, it's great to have that scientific study and everything, and know how I react to it and feel to it. But I also love just the idea of knowing, hey, I can actually help myself in this process of getting maybe into the work a little bit faster. Also, there was a study done that even kids who study, let's say they have a science test the next day, if when they're done studying, they listen to a piece of music before they go to sleep or before they go do something else, that they're actually kind of locking in what they've just learned versus it just kind of like, flowing right back out of the brain again. So it's just fascinating how our brain kind of works together with that, the way we're designed. And I love that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I almost don't even want how to respond to that, because it's like, I just think about how there's just so much we don't know. I mean, like God has just given us so many different gifts, so many different talents, and so many different just things, and the creativity that's there. And then you're talking about these studies, and it's like, it's just like, wow, that all these things can come together. And I don't know, I'm not expressing myself very well, but I kind of know what I mean inside.
No, and I mean, I think it is,
Yeah.
I think it is kind of awe-inspiring, right? I
It
mean,
is.
that thing that seems kind of simple as
Mhm.
far as music goes could actually influence what we're able to accomplish. Like that is a wow. If I could accomplish more in my day, which I'm always saying I need more hours, right? The more things I start, the more I'm like, I could use another 10 hours in a day. But maybe it's not another 10 hours in a day. Maybe it's just being more productive with the hours that we have. And if music is one of those things that can help us do that, then man, it just seems like it makes so much sense that we should employ it more. Especially if we can work with it. Now, if we need absolute quiet, I get that too. There are times where I just have to turn everything off because I'm a little bit like overstimulated with all the sounds and all the noises. So I totally get that as well. There are times where I'm just like, could we just turn everything off? Because like I'm going to lose my mind. Or go outside and just listen to the sounds around me. I'm so inspired by that too. Whether it's the birds that are chirping and trying to identify the woodpecker and what tree it's in, because you can hear him, pecking away, or, those kind of things also trigger for me frames of mind that I can get into and do writing. But there are times where I just love just that whole, I hear a song and I go, need to go write something, just that whole training of my brain to kind of operate in a certain way.
That's cool.
That's funny you say that.
Go ahead.
I have I had a music playlist for running. And so I would have certain songs that would come on. I'd be driving down the road and one of the songs off that playlist would come on and be like, but I can't run, I'm driving. But it would make me want to get up and go do the thing. So music is such a wonderful trigger for priming our brains to even be able to want to write. I just absolutely love it. And that God made this to work in this way for writing for so many things.
It's even the way we memorize and keep information in our brains too. I mean, from a little girl, when I was trying to memorize Bible verses or lists of my verb lists, am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been, have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, would, may, might, must, can, could. Like they're all still in my brain for a reason. It's been many, many, many years. And I can rattle these off to my children, year by year, as these things go by. I can't remember why I walk into a particular room half the time, but I can remember these weird word lists or whatever. It's because a lot of times I would sing them, kind of sing song them. I would create a little melody to go along with them and my brain could catch on to it. So it's like an earworm. Languages also that are taught with a little bit of a musical undercurrent with them help you remember those languages. I learned the entire book of James by listening to beats. They were like rap beats, but not like no music, no rap, no anything, but it had a certain rhythm behind it so that I could memorize while I was listening to it. And it helped me retain the information. So it is interesting. There is definitely a brain musical connection that if we could just figure out exactly how it worked best for us, then we could actually get a whole lot done.
It is. It's evocative, I think was the word that really comes to my mind, is that, like you say, it brings back memories. It is a memory tool in of itself. I was reminded, throwing back to my fiction and research and stuff, because it makes me think of that too, that the ancient Irish were known, their bards were known for remembering vast amounts of things, but it was because they put it to music. So they would often get up and perform it and sing out their genealogies, their laws, their ancient tribal traditions, or their hero tales. All of it was put to music. And so it really does. It's so deep.
Yeah.
No, it's so cool because there's so much more information we could hold on to if it's linked to at least even just a melody, especially if it's repetitive. That's why earworms are so effective, is because they're just a repeated thing over and over and over again. And you're like, this will never leave my brain, like it will always be here. And that's why it's so effective. And it's just, it's beautiful when we're intentional about the process of employing it to help us, whether we're trying to sit down and write or edit or, make sure that it flows, if you can read along and make sure that your dialogue flows or whatever you're writing flows. I think it's really it is so much fun.
Now, do you have always music running in the back of your mind, like elevator music in your head? So like you always have like a song that's like the song of the day, and then it will just like change without warning. And so you like always have that there. I do, but I'm wondering if others also have that constant song playing in the background of their mind.
That's an interesting question. I don't know that I have a song. And it transitions because, I'm transitioning a lot through the day. So, no, I don't know that I do have one. I think if I had to answer that question, I probably don't.
No, I
But
mean like one that's always playing. So not necessarily one song all the time, but a song always playing.
there is always something going on, yes, in the background.
Not for me, because I am not musically talented, but both I have a sister and a brother who are, and they both say that they didn't realize other people didn't, that there's always something music going on. And my little granddaughter, she's always making up songs and singing. I mean, she sings all the time and just puts these lyrics together, and and it's just like, okay, she got it. She's got that. She got that gift.
I always thought it was kind of normal that's how everybody kind of functioned, and that you memorized things that way and that everybody knew that. I just didn't. I just never put those two things together as unusual, but I always have assumed that people think like I do too, and they just don't. So.
Well, I always thought that somebody always had something going on in their head, like internal monologue in their head, talking all the time. And until I read an article within this past year where there are some people that simply don't, and I was shocked. Like, what? There's people that don't have that, always talking in their head. And I was like, oh, this changes everything. What if there was a character like that didn't have that in their head? Oh, how would I write it? It's funny if you don't know unless you talk about it and you ask other people, hey, you got this going on in your head? Because I kind of always thought that was normal too, but I guess normal is relative.
Normal is relative.
Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot of times where I'll have, especially I have found this to be true of late, I try to make sure I start the day with the praise and worship track. And usually that's the very first thing in the morning if I'm trying to write some emails or tackle some of those quick to-dos to get off the list. And I'll have that kind of playing in the background. And what's interesting is if I play them a couple of times during the day, and usually it's the same group of them, there's just a limited amount that I have time for. So I usually start it back at the beginning, but I'll wake up in the morning sometimes with those kind of already playing. Those words are already firing. And it's always so interesting to me because it's so encouraging to wake up that way versus dragging out of bed and hating to get up, which I still don't necessarily love. But if I have those, and here, this is where the lyrics matter, right? The lyrics are the ones that are going over and over in my head. And so, which is why I can't write or edit with lyrics because I do sing along. And so for me, it's such a distraction. I can't do both cognitive functions at the same time of singing and completing a sentence, that makes any sense at all. I'll go back and read things sometimes. I'll be like, I don't know what I'm saying here.
Well, something you said earlier, and I know I'm not going to be able to find the comment, but about reading out loud. So I mean, it's not music, but still just reading what you write out loud and getting the rhythm. And I don't really read out loud either, but I read in my head, I suppose. And but I can see that. I mean, like I don't have that musical gift that you all have, and I'm so jealous of those of you who do. But I get the rhythm of words and how they need to be and how sentences need to be. So I'm at least, really grateful for that little bit of a poetic sensibility. So, just wanted to throw that out there too.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I read like children's books, I love ones that rhyme, and mostly it's because of the lyrical quality to it. And I've written enough song lyrics to think about how those lyrics would flow. Like so I love, when anytime they say, well, rhyming picture books are out now, I'm like, but I love them. I like rhyme, because it makes so much sense to me. It's all organized and structured in a particular way. And so for my brain, I love that structure of knowing what's going to come next or what should come next if it's written really well, in the meter of how it's divided out, because could talk about rhythm, you know, and how the rhythms work. But I was, when I was getting ready for this morning, it was also interesting to research how the brain can block pain as well when it's occupied with listening to music. So this is a whole kind of another facet of how we could help ourselves. Because I think sometimes if we're in a long marathon session of trying to write or hit a deadline or edit and get things turned back around, sometimes it's a lot of hours, and we can start to get distracted because I'm tired, or my back hurts, or I've been sitting too long. You know, maybe one of those things is popping up, and it keeps distracting us from trying to stay really in the moment of what we're trying to do. And they've actually proven as well, more studies that have gone on to say that music can help us block those things about pain, because it distracts us enough to think about the music versus thinking about, oh, my ankle hurts and I need to go ice it or do something. Instead, it keeps us more focused and on task so we can complete the task. So I think that's really an interesting facet as well, especially when we're in these long, maybe marathon sessions and we would just rather be done. The brain can help us stay longer, especially if we maybe get the right music going in the background.
Definitely.
Yeah, you have me convinced I need to start being more intentional about that, because I think that's part of it. Is just I'm not in the habit of doing it, so I just don't. So, you know, a couple times I had, when I was writing a character who was kind of the cowboy type, he was actually based on a Dierks Bentley country song. I hold on. So during that time when I was writing that story, and especially when I was writing his scenes, I would have a country western, you know, playlist going on. But then I just sort of forget, you know, but with everything you're saying, it just seems like, yeah, I'm really maybe missing out by not being more intentional about playing music while I'm writing.
I think it's even like for fiction, especially, I think how fun it is to tie in a certain musical style or a song to a character that gets you really thinking about all of them and how it relates to them and how to describe them, and for when it comes on to help you actually fill out more of that character. I just think it probably will help make a more well-rounded character. If you're having trouble with a character, you know, find a song that you can relate to them. And just for scenes, for me, for the novel, it was, you know, the ones that had all that intensity and that build up, I was able to write just so much more detail than just, there was a car crash and they died. You know, it's like sitting down and sometimes thinking, what are words? You know, like sometimes you're just like, I think I know how to do this, but I'm not really sure. But if you can kind of get something kind of going in your mind and your brain can kind of go, and sometimes the characters take on lives of their own when you feel that tension and things that go on. Yeah. And I'm a full-on pantser. There is no plotting happening. So, you know, for me, the playlist is very important.
Yeah, that's what
we have a question in the chat. We have a question in the chat that's, from people that are wondering, how do you compile a playlist? For those that don't have a playlist yet, how do you come across one? What types of artists do you recommend? How did you come along your playlist?
Well, so I use Spotify for some of mine. And that's really kind of where I started a few years ago. Now I have some YouTube videos that I'll play, and I also have an Alexa that plays from something else. So there's like a variety of places now I can get my music from, but my Spotify playlists are really where I started, and I kind of gathered different pieces that I would listen to, but I would listen to other people's playlists that they already have created. So that Epic playlist that has Hans Zimmer and John Williams and all those really amazing movie themes on it, that exists. Somebody else created that. I'm just borrowing it. And I will heart particular songs on that playlist so that I know they're my favorites, and then I can delete others, and then I can create my own if I wanted to. But that one worked so well for me, I would just jump in it. And if a song wasn't working for me, I just skip it and keep going. But Spotify was a great place to do that. But you can also you know, if you listen to enough of the same songs on YouTube, you know, just playing on your computer or something, they will eventually start popping them up more often for you. And that's kind of how mine generate, you know, is this, you've listened to this 500 times before in the past. Would you like to listen to it again? You know, yes. That's why I listen to it. So yeah, it just kind of listening to other people's playlists, I guess, is where I would start. And Spotify is really great because they'll say peaceful piano or jazz favorites or coffee shop, or they'll give little kind of, and you'll go, that sounds like that might work, and pick that up. And then, I never did find that ambient theme music list, but spa, they'll call it spa or, electronic ambient, and it's just sounds. It's not really even like where you could listen to instrumentals. And that's the hard part about being trained this way, is that sometimes when I'm listening to certain classical pieces, especially, I'm like, oh, there's the horns. And then the violins are going to come in, and that's pizzicato. And, like all these things come back because I had to analyze music so much when I was in school. And so it's kind of one of those weird things that it can be distracting for me to actually listen to actual instruments playing songs, because then I'm like, oh, that was a really nice, whatever, saxophone solo. Whereas the rest of the world would just be like, hey, this music sounds good. My brain is just kind of wired a little differently.
That's cool. So sometimes
have Amazon Prime, as a membership to Amazon Prime, you can listen to Amazon Music. And even if you don't, they have like a free version of Amazon Music. It's a kind of smaller. Amazon Prime has a little bit, like, I don't know, 2 million songs that you can play. But if you get, like, they pay the extra for the Amazon Music Unlimited, you get a bazillion songs. But they swap out free albums. So that's another alternate place that you can find good playlists, because they have similar playlists. I find that I listen to Spotify more in the car and Amazon Prime Music on my computer when I'm at home. Different things. And I think there's other things like iHeartRadio. And then there used to be Slacker. I don't know if it's called Slacker anymore. And then my kids also use SoundCloud. There's another alternative. So there's a couple different platforms that you can find playlists on.
Yes, actually, that Amazon Alexa now is like connected to my Amazon Music. So I can actually just say, Alexa, play the Piano Guys instrumental, and I can actually just kind of tell it what to pick, and then just listen from there. So yeah, what a world we live in, where I can just tell something to play for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful. All right. What else do you have for us?
Just the whole tie-in with emotions. I think that's probably the biggest factor of recognizing, if you're starting to kind of droop in the middle of a session and you need to get a little bit, eke out maybe a few more minutes of something, maybe a couple songs could help you work to the end. I think it just helps us emotionally kind of stay connected and focused into what we're trying to get done. I know sometimes if I'm an hour in, like I will have been working for a little while and I'm just kind of starting to drift or lag, get slower in my process. If I can find, a little short burst of music to help me, just negotiate with myself, let's just work another 15 minutes, and I do that a lot. I negotiate with myself an awful lot to get things done so I can move on to something else I want to do. Then I think that if we really were very intentional, working that way, we'd also get a lot more done, especially come deadline time, because there's a lot of things I'm negotiating when I'm on a deadline.
Yeah, I'm on deadline.
Oh, I see.
I do that too.
Sorry. Jean said I turned all the Alexis's on.
Yeah, I saw it. That was funny. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to go back, and I really don't even know what my question is. So, just kind of bear with me with this, but the whole dissonance and consonance thing and those first two things that you played, it just, and I know we've touched on this, but it just amazes me how, just taking these different, it's the same range of notes, right? And just reorganizing them in different ways can actually so quickly. I mean, you were just playing little snippets, and yet immediately there's this visceral reaction to those things. So I don't know if there's any more that you want to say or could say on that, but it just, that part of it's just fascinating to me. And that's why I like movie soundtracks, I think too, is because you've got those epic swells and the lows and the highs and just all the themes coming together. And I don't know, it just, it's just a fascinating thing to me that
Yeah, these guys are really smart. Like they really know what they're doing, you know, because they are building that tension. And
Yes.
you know, it's funny because I often trained a lot of really young people when they were first taking piano lessons, for instance. And, you know, when you're first starting out, you just want to make pretty music. You don't ever want to hit wrong notes. You don't want to make anything sound bad. Um, and, 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 you know, I think it's the same way we operate in life. You know, we never want to make a mistake. And I had to learn to call my mistakes jazz. Because
Nice. I like that.
because I needed to be able to keep moving forward. We're never going to be perfect, so we have to keep moving forward. But I love jazz because it's so interesting, and it's usually very it's not always planned out. You know, it's like you have a little bit of a structure and then the rest of it, you're just kind of vamping. You're just kind of creating on the fly, which is a whole different kind of creativity than learning the notes and learning how to count and do all the things precisely. And so there's something really freeing and creative about playing that style of music. And so trying to get young people though to accept that they're going to make mistakes or play songs that maybe are a little sad or somber. There's some pieces that are written in a minor key, or they're I think Gregorian chants and things. You know, sometimes this music is not pretty, right? But the reason for that is because we appreciate the consonants so much more when it comes after. So you have that dissonance, you have that tension, you have all that, but then you have that sigh of relief at the end when things resolve, right? There's always, should be resolution. You know, sometimes we don't resolve things anymore because it keeps things kind of hanging, and you might want that too, that little bit of a cliffhanger. But when things resolve, all of a sudden you can kind of, and we appreciate the consonants better after the dissonance. And it's kind of the same thing in life. If everything was always sunshine and rainbows, we wouldn't appreciate sunshine and rainbows as much as we do. But on those cloudy and rainy days that we have, 3 or 4 days in a row, and all of a sudden the sun comes out, I mean, I'm like a different person. I'm like, like I've never seen it before. And yet, I have, but it just feels different because there's been so many days of not sunshine. It's the same thing in music. If there's a lot of dissonance and a lot of tension, you can't wait to get out of it because the other side feels so much better.
You need that. And there's a parallel to writing too, because like with the story, you're going to have that tension builds, hopefully until the very end. But, there has to be, even if it's a cliffhanger, there still has to be a resolution. There has to be a piece to it, to that particular part of the story. Yeah. And
without that, that piece just isn't as effective, I guess, as it is when there is these moments where you're like, I don't know, are we going to get here? Are we going to make it to the end? That dissonance in music creates that same feeling and frustration. And that's why I don't always like songs that don't resolve. If they just kind of leave hanging out there, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that was great. I'm like, no, I need a resolution. I need my one chord, like get me back
exactly.
to home.
That final note that just
hanging there, like I can't be comfortable, I'm resolving it in my head, or I'm like, I go to the piano and resolve it myself. I just have to get back to home.
Victoria, I got to share with you a quick story. When my wife and I first got married, she had a keyboard, and I took piano lessons. You would have hated me because my teacher said it's time for me to quit, but I loved it because it taught me to read music, which was a benefit. But I would go up, my wife is a little obsessive compulsive, and I would go and play the scale and only play 7 notes and walk away, and she would come wherever she was in the house. She'd have to hit that last button. One of the other things that I'll share with you, last March, when I was driving back, it was a 7-hour drive back from North Carolina conference. And I love a cappella music. So I can't listen to music while I write, because like you, I want to listen to the words, the harmonies. I want to listen to the tones. But I spent 2 hours listening to the same song, hit repeat, 2 hours driving back, listening to the same song. It was a new song to me, and I learned that song. But it's like reading scripture more than once. You read it over and over and over again, and you get new things. There's times I was actually in tears. There was times I was overjoyed. and it was the same song over and over and over and over again, which, you know, it can move you to different emotions depending on where you are.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for sharing that. That's really good. We've had a lot of comments in the chat. I'm looking for questions though, and I'm not, did I miss anybody's question? Not sure. I'm going to read Pam's. This is more about writing. She said we should always read our stuff out loud. And you're right, we should, but it just would take so much time. It's a whole novel, and I usually don't have time to do it before it's ready to send in. But this is interesting. She said, because the pixels on the computer are always moving and our brains pick up on that, and we'll catch more mistakes if we read it on regular paper and read it out loud. I do often, though. Do you guys print out your stuff so that you're
I still like to print out stuff.
Yeah.
I scold myself all the time because I'm like, you really should just send it to your iPad, or you really should just do that. You know, it's right here on the computer, but I do see it differently on a page. I can edit easier on a page. I could fill a landfill with paper, I suppose, but
I know I feel guilty about doing it too, but I do too, because you've got to just read it and draw arrows and do, you know, and do all that kind of stuff. But that's a little bit of a different topic, but since you commented on it, anything else?
No, I mean, unless there's unless somebody else has things they want to add or talk about, I don't have anything else to add. I just think it's so fascinating. I love the way we're wired, and to think that we can control, or at least help steer our brains in the right direction to get things done or to be more focused. I think it's such a fascinating thing to at least, make the attempt to do it. So
I do too. And I think when we started out, a lot of people were saying they like quiet when they write, but maybe some of us will have changed our minds after listening to this. And again, for me, it's kind of the story. Like I did it for that one character. And sometimes when I'm writing World War II stuff, I'll do the big band music, but I may only do it a day or two. And then I think I just forget. I just don't think to turn it on, because I just am focusing on this story. Brandy, Melissa, anything else you wanted to add? Because they both are worship leaders or musically inclined, not necessarily worship leader, but musically inclined too, right? Yeah, so.
One thing that I did to kind of spur my writing was I bought a theremin. That's that little funny thing right there, you see. And I didn't buy it to learn how to play a theremin, but I bought it because it's an expressive instrument. So when I'm feeling stuck or I want to express something, even if I'm thinking about a character or a storyline, then I can go over there and I can play with the sounds on the theremin to kind of get kind of in a mood. So that's kind of one of the things that I did to help my writing. And the other thing I did was I bought a low C harmonica, really simple instrument that you don't have to know the basics of how to play in order to make something really pretty. And I think sometimes if we can express how we're feeling, it can help get us into a writing mode or into a character's mindset. So those are just a couple little extra tips, really simple things. Harmonicas are pretty inexpensive if you want to try that kind of thing. But I just love music, and it really helps me to get into the mood of writing, especially if I'm stuck. I'll put on music or I'll just doodle on a page, and it just taps into that creativity part of my brain that lets me start writing. I really enjoyed this chat.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Vicki. Well, we'll ask everyone to come back on, and then, any last comments anybody wants to make. If you're stuck in jail, let me know. I don't think I took anybody off though, so everyone should be able to come back on, but start popping in. Vicki, I'm just going to kind of throw this at you, but I know that you've started a new venture, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about it if you want to.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I didn't want to hijack, this episode. That new venture is a little different from a musical adventure, but yes. So have launched a brand new publishing house called Abingdon Press. And it's a traditional house. We're going to be publishing across the genres and in both the general and Christian markets. And really excited about that. We'll have our first releases this fall, so there will be announcements very soon. These contracts are starting to be signed, which means I've sent them out, and that was a big deal already because I read them and reread them and read them again to make sure that everything was correct. But we'll have at least 5 titles going out this fall, and anticipate, there's just so many things going on all at one time, but it's an exciting time digging in and really understanding the publishing industry and how to best move books and how to get them into the right places so people will buy them, and then how to help authors. I think that that's the exciting part for me, as well as, over the last couple of years, I've learned an awful lot myself, and I have tried really hard to make sure that I put that education back out there for other people who are coming along and trying to get into the industry as well. And I feel like this is a perfect kind of parallel. I can also offer education for people so that they're better for having worked with the press at the same time as giving them the tools that they're going to need in order to become really great authors of their own right and have a great career path ahead of them. So it's exciting to me to be able to try to influence and help authors along the way too.
Oh, that's so exciting, and just wishing you the very best in that. That is a big, big step, and
yes,
and I know you're going to do great because you are so detail oriented and so energetic and so enthusiastic, and it's going to be wonderful. Abingdon Press. So
yes.
Congratulations on that.
I kept thinking it was really kind of challenging to name. I had all kinds of things in mind when it came time to name, and it's always the exciting part. Oh, you get to name your business. Yeah, but it's also like so intimidating, like words.
Yes, it is.
I wanted to think about, what is the bottom line? What are we really trying to accomplish? And then that led me to end game, and just thinking about what is your end game. And I know what mine is. And I know that extraordinary things happen when ordinary people just continue to accomplish the things they know that God has put in front of them, whether that's general market, Christian market, or whatever it is that he has. And so, it is a very right brain, left brain thing. It's been a challenge for the last few weeks to find time to do the writing that I'm supposed to be doing, because I am involved in kind of the nitty gritty of getting some of the details done. And so I have to also work on my time management even more than I had set up before, because now I'm doing all the things and all the things. And so I just have to organize them in certain ways where I'm going to still maximize the best timing I can.
And we've got the website address in the chat. It's ingamepress.com. So that's
and hopefully within the next week or so, there will be announcements there about who the first few authors are going to be that will be part, and what the titles are, and that's the exciting fun part. So.
And are you taking submissions? I guess people will want to know that too.
Right now I'm taking agented submissions. So have your agent submit to me at victoria@endgamepress.com. Also, if you are a loyal Writers Chat member, you could submit as well. I can't guarantee how quickly I can get to them right now, because honestly, I probably have enough already in the last 2 weeks to get me through to 2023.
Wow.
Which is a good problem to have, but I want to help as many people as I can, get to press. I want to get all the good ideas out there, but it's just amazing how many great ideas have already come in. And I have agent calls frequently, and they're asking, what are you looking for? And, everything, I'm open to anything and everything. I have received a lot of children's books already, which is fun. And I've loved that. People have also asked, what are you looking for with platform? I'm really looking for people that are working on it. I know that an engaged audience is better than a high number. I know like past precedents, like what you've done before and what you've done already and what you're working on now makes a difference. So I don't like the number game personally. I want to have a really good idea and a really great person that I want to work with, and then kind of go from there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And thanks for being here and talking about music. It is 11, so I think we're going to go ahead and end, and then stay around for a quick after party. If you're watching the replay, we're very thankful that you do that. We appreciate you doing that. Feel free to join us anytime on Tuesday mornings, 11 Eastern, 10 Central. We're almost always here, almost every single Tuesday of the year, except around Christmas. And we also invite you to join our Facebook group. It's just Writers Chat members, so you can find us that way too if you're not already there. And thanks everybody for being here. Stay around for the after party. Oh, hold on.